You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Hello and welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. My name is Joe Hopkins. With me is Mike Chappell. Dave feeling a little under the weather today, but we hope to have him back next week. Today, we're going to preview the Colts' upcoming matchup against the Washington Commanders. It's a substantial matchup, not only because the Colts still at 3-3-1 are in theory vying for playoff position still, but Sam Ehlinger will be making his first career start after the quarterback change this week. And Mike, just yesterday on Wednesday, you got a chance to speak with Matt Ryan about, his benching. This is the first time he's been benched in his career.
Yeah, he'll miss his fourth start in like 240. So he handled it pretty well. He was waiting for us as we walked in the locker room. Normally, I think when the guy's hurt, we get him, I guess, when he's healthy. But this time he was waiting for us, and it was the classy thing to do. And he made it very clear he was disappointed, surprised. He wouldn't go much further than that, but I know from discussions I've had elsewhere that he was very upset. What was most concerning to him is that it was, if you remember what Frank said, right now Sam's our starter for the rest of the season. Well, that's simply discarding Matt Ryan is what that's doing. And I think at the if you had given the team a do-over, what would have best served them to say is, Matt's out for a game or two and we're going to roll with Sam and then we'll reevaluate. We'll see where this thing goes. Barring injury to Sam Ehlinger and Nick Foles, how do you go back to Matt Ryan? I don't know. So he wasn't. He was very, very classy in what he said, but it was obvious that he was upset. We asked him if he could have played this week with the shoulder. He said, I don't know. He said it would have been close, but that was taken out of his hands.
Yeah, I thought it was a class act the way he handled it, and especially his comment about where he talked about he had always been a believer that you do your best to play the role that the team assigns for you. And so now his role is to kind of be a mentor in a way to Sam Ehlinger and help him as much as he can. So I liked hearing that from the veteran quarterback. Hopefully he's able to give a lot of wisdom to Mr. Ehlinger as he's about to make his first start. And it's got to be an extremely difficult time for Matt Ryan, who, MVP, Super Bowl appearance, what was he, the third overall pick back in the day, a player who, I'm not sure if he's a Hall of Famer, but he's kind of on that edge, maybe just below the Hall of Fame status since he doesn't have any, championship to his name, but definitely a player of high pedigree, and it's got to be extremely difficult at the end of his career. This is not how he envisioned this season going, and if this is the end of Matt Ryan, at least as a starting quarterback or a viable starting quarterback, I'm sure this is not how he wants to go out.
Yeah, and twice he was asked about, because remember what Frank Reich said, how, we didn't hold up our end of the bargain with the trade about bringing him here with an offensive line and running game, and he was asked that twice. Do you think the Colts let you down? And he just wouldn't really bite. He said, we all hoped, he said, when I came here, we saw things differently as far as where this team would be. And we all needed to play better. This is about winning games and being productive, which they've won games, but they've not been productive. So yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see where this goes. Might we have seen the last of him? Maybe, although we've got 10 games to go, and to think with the way this line's played that Sam and Nick Foles will stay healthy. I mean, based on what? So we'll see. I'll tell you, an interesting question was brought up by Kevin Bowen, and he said if you thought about asking for a trade. And that's really an interesting question. The trade deadline's next week. And if the Colts, as they've kind of indicated that they're through with Matt Ryan after 7, remember, they made a 2-year commitment to Matt Ryan, and it lasted 7 games. So it would be very interesting a borderline playoff team is a backup quarterback or a starting quarterback away, would they be willing to take on Matt Ryan? The Colts would probably be more than happy since they're about face on him. He would cost the new team this year about $6 million, maybe $7 million of his base salary. Interesting. I think we won't get into it today because we've got a game to preview. But with the trade deadline next week, if they go out Sunday and just are atrocious, I don't think that's going to be the case. What do? Do you start looking around and getting rid of a player or two, Stephon Gilmore,
Yannick Ngakoue?
Ryan, yeah, I mean, throw some names out there. Ryan Kelly, because of cap and all that. Frank was asked if moving to Matt Ryan moving to Sam was a sign of waving the white flag, and Frank really pushed back hard against that. That's not in our DNA, blah blah blah, and he's right. But if it doesn't go well right away with Sam, does this team look to be a seller before the trading deadline? That would be waving the white flag.
I think Chris Ballard's not doing his job if he doesn't at least look into it, especially players on expiring contracts. I mentioned Yannick just because he's in the final year of his deal, and while he has gotten a few sacks this year, I don't think he's quite made the snap after snap impact that the Colts hoped he would. Matt Ryan being traded, man, I just have a difficult time thinking of a team that would want to take on Matt Ryan. The only one I can really think of is, say, the 49ers go out there and Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt and he's done for the year. 49ers are a team who's all in, and Shanahan worked with Matt Ryan and got them to a Super Bowl and MVP season. So I could see a scenario where the 49ers, just trying to save their season maybe, would be interested in Ryan. But other than that, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But first things first, Colts got to see how they play on Sunday. And if they get a win and they look good, I'm not sure they're exactly going to be having a fire sale because, I mean, Ballard and Reich, I think their jobs are kind of on the line, and they're not ready to wave the white flag because their job security just isn't there right now.
I was so looking forward to that Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz showdown Sunday at Lucas Oil, and now that's not what we're going to have.
No, we got a Heineke Ehlinger showdown, and honestly, I'm kind of here for it. I think it's going to be a fun game in a lot of ways. But before we get to the game, a few pieces of news that I'm going to get to here. The Colts have signed punter Nolan Cooney to the practice squad. This comes after Matt Hawk struggled mightily against Tennessee. We talked about it on Monday, but he had punts of 32, 29, 27, and 28 yards. Also had a 60-yarder that he kicked out of the back of the end zone. None of his punts were downed inside the 20. So the Colts bring in Cooney to at least say, hey, Hawk, you're replaceable. If you don't get it together here soon, we'll bring someone else in. We've already done it at kicker. We'll do it again at punter. And thank God Dave's not here because I'm sure he would be screaming about how this guy, Nolan Cooney, who's never seen game action in the NFL, but he did go to Syracuse, Dave's beloved Syracuse. So that's about all I have on Cooney for you, but definitely bringing in some backup punters there just in case Matt Hawk goes out there and shanks a few more punts. Last bit of news, Colts sign linebacker Forrest Rhyne to the practice squad and release DeMichael Harris, so bringing in linebacker depth as their linebacker who's been playing a lot of special teams snaps is injured. That would be Grant Stewart. They traded for him early in the year from Tampa Bay. He's dealing with a pec injury. So they bring Forrest Rhyne, who you might be familiar with from the preseason, back to the practice squad.
One other piece of news, just I didn't scan your outline the whole way, but Sunday Tariq Glenn goes into the Ring of Honor. So, it's always a cool day because I tell you, all the stars are coming out. Peyton will be back, and Jeff Saturday, Marvin Harrison, Edgerrin James. So it's really cool to see this. And I said for the last several years, Tariq Glenn was overdue. He should have been in before now. I talked to Tariq yesterday, and he's really excited. So it's kind of cool to see Tarek getting his just due and having other Colts come back. I mentioned to Peyton Manning, I said, boy, you're going to be in town. You can watch Sam Ehlinger and Taylor Heineke. I said, enjoy.
That's right. Yeah, I had it a little later, but let's go ahead and talk about it now. 3-time Pro Bowler, and I mean, he just did such a great job protecting Peyton Manning's blind side for about 9 seasons there. I know his rookie year he played guard, but then played left tackle the rest of his career. Retired after the Super Bowl victory. Very well deserving of a spot in the Ring of Honor. And Reggie Wayne agrees with you. This was overdue. I saw a comment today, him stating that Tarek should have already been in. So a lot of those Colts from those glory years of the early 2000s are going to be in town, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So anybody attending the game on Sunday will get to see the Ring of Honor induction of Tarek Glenn. Mike, what does Hancock Health's membership in the Mayo Care Clinic mean for you? Well, I'll tell you. It means our independent health network, goodness, this is my first time reading it. It means our independent health network now has access to the knowledge and resources of the world leader in medicine. It means Hancock Health doctors can now consult with Mayo Clinic specialists to confirm a diagnosis or treatment plan. And it means that together, we're making health possible for you. Learn more about our new clinical collaboration at hancockregional.org/Mayo Clinic. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the injury report here. We know Ashton Doolin will not be playing as he's still on IR with that foot injury. Wednesday's practice report, a couple veterans had a rest day. That would be Stephon Gilmore and defensive end Yannick Ngakoue. We already know Matt Ryan not practicing with that shoulder injury. Defensive end Kwity Paye still not practicing with the ankle. I would not expect him to suit up this week, though. That was a pretty severe ankle injury there. I believe a high ankle sprain, if I'm correct, and that's going to take him probably another week or two before he's ready to start practicing and get back on the field. Already mentioned linebacker Grant Stewart with the pectoral. He did not practice Wednesday. We'll see if he can get back the next couple of practices so he can participate on special teams in this game. Limited participants, that would be center Ryan Kelly with a knee and linebacker JoJo Doman with an abdomen injury. Full participants, wide receiver Kiki Cootie coming back from the concussion, so that's good to see. Long snapper Luke Rhodes listed with the shoulder injury, but he was able to practice fully. Linebacker Zaire Franklin, also a shoulder injury. And then the star linebacker Shaq Maniac Leonard, full practice with the back. Mike, you had a chance to talk to Shaq. What are your feelings on his availability for Sunday?
Yeah, he never gives us, a definitive because it's as we found out last week, it's not in his hands. He wanted to play last week and he was voted down. I got more of an upbeat vibe from him this week. I think he does play. He just said, I asked him, I said, isn't the intent to kind of keep stacking good days on top of another and get better? And he said, yeah. And he said he gave the impression he's just feeling more like, I'm feeling more like myself. I'm feeling more like a linebacker. So I think there's a very good chance Shaq plays Sunday, which this defense has played really, really well, I think, overall. And the one thing that's been missing are the shock plays, the takeaways, and that's the core of his game. So if he's back, it could be a nice little boost for a defense already playing winning football.
Yeah, it'd be great to get Shaq back and see some of those Shaquille strikes, knocking the ball out of running backs and wide receivers' hands to get some fumbles there. Really, it's going to be extremely important to get some turnovers and really help out an offense with a brand new quarterback out there. Maybe give them some short fields to work with. Did you see anybody on Thursday, any new news from the Thursday practice report, or is it pretty status quo?
It's pretty status quo. The guys that were rested will be back. I didn't make it out to practice. I was doing something else. But no, again, the only issue is Kwity, which this will be, his third game I think he's missed?
I believe so. He got hurt in the Broncos game.
That bears watching. They didn't put him on IR with the idea that he wouldn't miss 4 games or that he wouldn't be able to practice. They didn't want him to miss 4 weeks of practice, but he's not been out there. We'll see. But by and large, except for the quarterback, they've pretty much got their health.
That's good to see there. Looking at the Commanders' side, we know Carson Wentz isn't going to play. He's on IR with that broken finger. Their star defensive end, Chase Young, is still on IR from a knee injury he suffered last year. I saw a report that he will be designated to return next week, so the Colts will not have to be worrying about Chase Young this week. Players who did not practice for the Commanders Wednesday, wide receiver Jahan Dotson, the first-round pick, is still dealing with a hamstring injury, and he has not played since week 4. Starting cornerback William Jackson, he has a back injury. He hasn't played since week 5, and he's requested to trade from the team. So, that back might still be acting up until the trade deadline passes. Linebacker Cole Holcomb, who also starts for the team, he's dealing with a foot injury. He did play last week, so this seems like a new ailment for him. We'll see if he's able to suit up. Tight end Cole Turner, rookie, has a concussion. And their starting guard, Sadiq Charles, did not practice Wednesday with the illness. So we'll see if he's able to recover and start on that offensive line for Washington Sunday. Limited participants for the Commanders. Tight end Logan Thomas dealing with a calf injury, so that's 2 of their tight ends that are dinged up. Wide receiver Diami Brown has a groin injury, and he did miss last week, so that's 2 of their wide receivers who are dinged up. And running back Jonathan Williams, who has a knee injury. Full participants include their starting right tackle Sam Cosmi. He had a surgery to fix an injury in his thumb. He has not played since week 4, but it looks like he might be coming back soon. And quarterback Taylor Heineke was listed with a calf injury, but a full participant suggests that it's not that serious. I expect Heineke to suit up on Sunday. All right, let's look at this Commanders team now. The 3-1 Colts are hosting the 3-4 Commanders. It will be a later game for the Colts, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. And if you're in Central Indiana, you can watch it on Fox 59. The Commanders have won 2 straight games, and they're coming off a big road win over the Packers. Their offense on the season has not been that impressive. They're 25th in scoring with a touch under 18 points per game, 24th in yards, 326. Their passing and rushing is pretty even, 19th and 22nd in the league. They've allowed the 3rd most sacks in the NFL, so the Colts should be able to get after Heineke and harass him back there, especially with Buckner, Yannick, and the rest of that stout front Indianapolis has. And they're kind of in the middle in turnovers, 16th. They have 9 turnovers on the year. Looking at their defense, it's kind of so-so, middle of the pack. They're 19th in points allowed with a little bit over 22 per game. 13th in yards allowed, 336 per game. They're 17th against the pass, and they have the 3rd fewest interceptions with just 2. Second most passing touchdowns allowed with 14. So 14-2 touchdown pass to interception ratio is not great. They're 7th against the run with 118 yards per game, but they are allowing 4.5 yards per carry. So it's not exactly like they're shutting everyone down on the run there. Just the total yards are not as high as they could be. They have been able to get to the quarterback this year. They're 7th in sacks with 19, but they have the 4th fewest takeaways in the NFL with just 4. So this Washington team, I mean, that's about how the statistics for a 3-4 team you would predict them to be. Players to watch, obviously, it starts with the quarterback, Taylor Heineke. He is 8-9 as a starter in his career. First Green Bay last week in his first start since the Wentz injury. He was 20 of 33 for 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So decent day out of Heineke. I tell you, if Ehlinger puts up a stat line similar to that, I think Colts fans would be happy on Sunday. For his career, Ehlinger completes 64% of his passes, has 24 touchdown passes, and 19 interceptions. His top target is Indianapolis' own Terry McLaurin. He leads Washington with 440 receiving yards this year, and he has 2 consecutive seasons of 1,000 receiving yards on his belt. And then that Washington front seven is pretty stout and led by Jonathan Allen, who leads the team with 7 tackles for a loss and 3.5 sacks. Deron Payne, another defensive tackle, has 3.5 sacks and 5 tackles for a loss. So the Colts offensive line will have their work cut out for them against a defensive line that's really stout. A lot of first-round picks invested in that front seven between Payne, Allen. They took the linebacker out of Kentucky, Davis, in the first round, and they've been using him on blitzes. He can get after the quarterback. So this Washington team really wants to play defense and run the football. And let's talk about keys to the game now, Mike. I want to talk about Sam Ehlinger and how the Colts need to use him to win this game. I think first and foremost, they need to take care of the football. I mean, that's the number one reason why Matt Ryan got benched. Ryan leads the NFL in turnovers. The Colts turn to Sam and hope that he can make some smarter decisions with the football. Heck, just hang on to the football when he gets sacked and not fumble it would be a great start. I saw a great trivia question for you on Twitter about the last Colts quarterback to win their first career start.
1988.
That's amazing.
Chris Chandler. He's not only the last, he's the only one since like 1966 to win their first career start with the Colts. And it's just crazy because you're talking, Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck and Jeff George and on and on and on. And what it is, it's when you make your first start, if you're Peyton or Andrew Luck or Jeff George, you're with a bad football team. That's why you were the first overall pick. So, but then the other ones, Kelly Holcomb, it's things didn't go well. Curtis Painter, he comes in when they're 0-3. So there's the team is and Frank Reich and the players, they're saying all the right things. He's got the it factor. He's practiced well, and he's made elite throws in practice, which okay. I didn't get too blown up by that. But they really believe in what he brings. But you just don't know. How do you know? Yes, he played well in the preseason, and we've talked it. I'd rather he played well in the preseason than played poorly in the preseason. But preseason, you're out there against your own level at the time, second and third stringers, and hopefully, if you belong, you sort of dominate. And his numbers said he dominated. He was our leading rusher. So what's interesting is he brings in a totally different approach and skill set to the offense than Matt Ryan did. He just does. So we're going to see rollouts. We're going to see bootlegs. But at some point, he's going to have to push the ball down the field. I was looking at the stats when you were talking, and the Colts were averaging 9.9 yards a catch. That's just not very good. I think their longest play of the year is 40 yards, the touchdown to Pierce against Jacksonville. So he's got to play his game. Part of me thinks that what we're going to see is 3 or 4 possessions where they're just going to say, doggone it, we're going to get back and run the football. And almost to a fault, but that, certainly Washington is going to expect that. So do you come out and you roll him out and you try to get the passing game going to where it's not 50 passes, but it's giving him the threat of passing, and then you come back with the run? I just have to believe that if he throws the ball 40 or 50 times, it's not a good game. It's not. They need to come out of this to where the passing game is competent. Like you said, the 200-some yards that Heineke had with a couple touchdowns and an interception, they'd take that in a heartbeat. But you've got to have this running game give you something. We started to see some of that last week in Tennessee. I thought Jonathan Taylor, 10 for 58, 5.8. You'd take that. Now, 10 carries isn't going to cut it. But as much, like Frank Reich said, we don't want him to be a hero, but he's got to play the position. He's got to make the plays, but they simply have to play better around him. And we talked to Ryan Kelly yesterday, and so many players were shocked by the demotion, but he said, he said, hey, we all need to play better. That's all on us. And until this, we talked on Monday, I think it was, until this line plays better, I don't see how this gets better. So hopefully they give Sam a chance to do what he needs to do, and they don't get into some kind of a trail 14-0 or 17-3 where they've been. They've trailed at the half in like 9 straight games. That's just crazy. It's crazy that you haven't fallen into a halftime lead. But let the game come to Sam. Let him make the plays, and don't put too much on him, and we'll see if that's going to be a winning formula.
Yeah, we can kind of talk about both these things at once here, because my second key of the game is get back to running the football. That's a must if the Colts are going to win and win with Sam Ehlinger. I mean, I don't even think they should let him throw 40 to 50 times. I remember last week the Falcons and the Bengals. The Falcons found themselves down 20 plus points to the Bengals pretty early, and they still only threw the ball 13 times in the entire game. I don't think the Colts should be that extreme, but I think no matter what they do, they need to stick to the run. Very similar to how we saw the Colts call plays last year with Carson Wentz, especially when Jonathan Taylor was running the ball so well. They're going to have to run the ball in order to win games, but in order to run the ball, there has to be some threat of the pass. And I think Washington is basically going to come out and say, okay, prove you can pass the ball. Prove you can throw it. This guy's never done it before. We're going to key in on the run until you make us respect the pass. I would love to see the first play of the game, Sam Ehlinger play action bootleg and hit somebody for 10, 15 yards, something like that, just to keep them honest and say, hey, we're going to throw the ball. We're not afraid to throw the ball, and you're going to have to defend honestly. So that way it can kind of open things up for Jonathan Taylor in the run game, because we've seen it this year. If there's no threat of the pass, it's far easier to defend the run, especially with the offensive line playing how it's been.
Yeah, we saw when they threw 58 times against Jacksonville, in large part it worked because Jacksonville really wasn't prepared for that. And then they sort of tried the same thing at Tennessee, and lo and behold, Tennessee was ready for it. There was tighter coverage, and Jonathan Taylor had 7 catches for 27 yards. So, yeah, and part of the run game is going to be Ehlinger. He's going to be part of the game to where, I don't want to see him carry 8 or 10 times on design runs for whatever, but he gives him the threat of getting on the edge. And one thing like Frank mentioned on Monday, or I think it was Monday, to where when you have a quarterback with that mobility, maybe he breaks containment. Maybe he avoids the pressure on 3rd and 5 and gets the first down. There have probably been 4 or 5 times this year where Matt Ryan has had that chance to avoid the pressure of a collapsing pocket and take off and get the first down. Not run 30 yards, but run 7 yards. And Ehlinger will give you that. If he has a chance, quarterback draws, whatever, he will figure it. He needs to figure in the pass in the run game. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts type. I'm not saying that. But he gives you the threat of 4 or 5 plays in a game. He can keep them chains moving. And occasionally maybe he had a 40-some yarder, 50-yarder in the preseason, which was improv. But that's what he does bring. I just don't think they can base their offense around Sam being a focal point of the run game, but he gives you a complementary attack that you sorely need.
No, and he's not that kind of athlete. He's not a Jalen Hurts. He's not even a Daniel Jones, if we're being honest. I mean, he ran a 40 in the 4.8s, and I know the 40 isn't the end-all, be-all on athleticism, but he's a good athlete, but he's not the kind of athlete who can go to the NFL and all of a sudden outrun everybody. I mean, we got linebackers running in the 4.4s these days. So they're definitely going to be able to use Sam in that manner, and I think they need to use Sam in that manner because that adds another element for defenses to worry about. You kind of have to reach into your bag of tricks here and keep defenses guessing as to what the Colts are going to do. I do think Sam is capable of taking off and getting you 10, 15. Obviously, we saw the 40-yarder in the preseason when the seas just kind of parted for him and he just took off and go. I'm not saying he can't run, but he's not the kind of guy where you can design your offense to have Sam Ehlinger outrunning people consistently. I just wanted to make that clear because I know he's a heck of a whole lot more mobile than Matt Ryan these days and Phillip Rivers. But, I mean, I'm not even sure he's got the speed that Carson Wentz has out there, and he certainly doesn't have the size. But he is a thick guy who can take some hits and who can go, and I'm not really necessarily as worried about him in the open field because he has that kind of frame where I feel like he can take some hits.
Just not too many.
Just not too many, because then all of a sudden we're turning to Nick Foles. I don't think anybody wants to see that right now.
Well, apparently the Colts don't either. I mean, of all the people on this team that has to be shrugging like, what's going on, it's Nick Foles. He went from beloved backup to number 3. Now the only reason he's number 2 is because Matt Ryan's got the shoulder. So strange dynamic in the Colts quarterback room right now.
Yeah, very strange indeed. I mean, the thing about Nick Foles is he just really doesn't give you any upside on a season-long scale. I understand if a game or two you got to put Nick Foles out there, it's not the end of the world, but for the rest of the year, I mean, I don't see any upside in Nick Foles playing. And he really hasn't played consistently good football since the Super Bowl year. What was that, 2017, way back in the day? So
the statue year.
That's right.
There's a statue.
Yeah, that's Philly for you. But it was a huge win for the city, and they celebrated it. And goodness gracious! All right, so Jonathan Taylor, Mike, to get him going in the run game, we kind of saw it last week against Tennessee. Obviously, the run blocking needs to be better. I feel like with the threat of the quarterback being able to take off and you can get some more RPO action going on as well, I think that might help the run game get a bit of a spark. Is that the same feeling that you get, or are you kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it?
Probably a little bit of both. So many people are excited and have been calling for Sam Ehlinger, and yeah, we'll see. Sometimes be careful what you ask for, and I don't. And again, I'm just trying to be realistic here. But one thing I've always, when the Lions had such trouble creating seams or whatever, maybe there'll be a better chance if they come out and they spread things out a little bit with receivers and a tight end or whatever, and you've got Sam, and then it's not all bunched up in the box where it's just a mass of people. So hopefully, again, we saw that there were 1 or 2 plays last week where Taylor, he showed when he got out in the open, he still got those moves. Again, I said this before, I may have said it Monday. This is still the same player. He's not forgotten what he is and who he is and all that. It's just he's not had a lot of room. Again, his longest run is he had 2 21-yarders after the game was out of hand in Jacksonville. So I think this will be more conducive to getting the running game going. And if they get the running game going early, then they can lean on that. And I think that's the ideal scenario is, like you see, to be very economical and pick your spots with Sam in the passing game. But like you said, there's got to be the threat of the pass, because until you prove you can do it, they're gonna assume that you can't do it. And again, one thing with Sam outside the pocket, creating time, maybe that's going to open up a few things down the field to where you've got Paris Campbell down the field. You got Michael Pittman down the field. Michael Pittman's sort of been pleading for shots down the field, which they've, I think Ryan averaged 5.4 yards an attempt last week. That's, in today's NFL, you can't win that way.
Yeah, especially you got big 6'4" wide receiver Michael Pittman. He should get at least 1 or 2 jump balls per game down the field. One of those shots on the sideline where if Pittman doesn't come down with it, it's either it's incomplete or maybe it's a 3rd and long, and it basically works as a punt for you if it's picked off or something like that. But he's too good of a player, and he has too much of a size advantage not to get a few shots down the field. And I mean, same with Alec Pierce. He's 6'3". He has a 40-inch vertical, and he's shown this year that he can make plays. The Colts have two studs on the outside. They got 6'7" Jelani Woods. I mean, I don't see the reason for not taking more shots down the field. And like we already stated, that's going to be necessary to open things up in the run a little bit. You connect on a couple of those, and the defense is going to have to back up. I also think Frank Wright is going to dig into his bag of tricks in this game. I mean, we've seen things where he gets creative with Hines and Taylor in the field on the field at the same time, and we haven't always liked all of the results of the direct snaps to Hines or to Taylor. Obviously, we hate them when they don't work out, but there's been plays last year where they did work out. I mean, I believe the New England game, there was a touchdown off a direct snap. I think to Nyheim Hines, and Jonathan Taylor was the lead blocker, and Hines got in the end zone. So I think Frank Wright's really going to be creative this week, keep the defense guessing, especially with Ehlinger. Like we said, he can move a little bit more. You can split him outside, and you have to at least keep an eye on him a little bit, maybe more than you would Matt Ryan or someone like that. My final key to the game is a defensive key: stuff the run. Washington ran for 166 yards on that Green Bay defense last week, and one of their 2 touchdown drives included 2 runs of 20-plus yards. So if they're able to stop the run, that means they'll be able to force Taylor Heinicke into more third and long situations. And I get Heinicke is, by basically everyone's standards, a pretty darn good backup quarterback in the NFL. He's around 500 as a starter. But still, I mean, you want to get this guy into third and longs where you can really pin your ears back, let your pass rushers go get him, and let your secondary, which, a lot of the talk around the Colts has been so negative because the offense has been such a disappointment. But this defense has been playing really well. The secondary has been playing really well. Gilmore has earned every penny of his contract with the Colts. And I think Isaiah Rodgers is quietly earning himself a decent contract, if not here, somewhere else soon, because Isaiah Rodgers is playing good football. They got the safeties playing good ball, whether that's Rodney Thomas or I saw Julian Blackmon. I don't think he started last week, but he ended up playing most of the snaps after Thomas got the start. So really, Mike, I think it's going to be important to stop the run and kind of make Heinicke beat you.
And by and large, the defense against the run has been pretty good. What really blows the stats out of the water was the 243 by Jacksonville. That one game they went from 4th against the run to 21st. So it's when you have such a bad game in a short part of the season, it's going to blow you up. But by and large, I think what's really hurt this defense, which is, I don't know whether it's tackling, whether it's missed assignments, sometimes it's both, are those 2 or 3 gashing plays that they tend to give up. So hopefully, I thought they did a really good job on Derrick Henry last week. He got most of his 120-some yards, pretty much in the fourth quarter when they were trying to salt things away. So I like the way the defense is playing. They need some takeaways. That's what the league's built on, especially when your offense isn't really generating points. 16 points a game is just atrocious. So I like the way the defense is playing. I think Grover Stewart is having a Pro Bowl season. I mean, he had, 12 tackles last week. The Colts pointed out that was the most this year by a defensive tackle in the league. It was the most tackles by a Colts defensive tackle since at least 1994. Buck's playing really well. They need to get more from Ngakoue. I think he's been sort of, you mentioned, kind of quiet. He's had like 2 sacks at the end of the first half. They all count, but he's not had the influence. I like the way the defense is playing. Don't give Heinicke a running game where he can to do what we want the Colts to be able to do. Just kind of stand back there and throw when you want to. Make him make plays to beat you.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, both these teams kind of want to play the same way. They both want to be able to run the ball, not have to throw it 40 times with their quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks, honestly, pretty similar when you talk about athleticism. Heinicke can get out and run a little bit too, but you're not necessarily scared of it as a defense. So the Colts defense is really going to have to step up in this one and keep keep the game within reach, because I don't think with Ehlinger in his first game, the Colts are going to be able to put up, 27, 30, 35 points or anything like that. At best, they're going to be able to score in the low 20s, and the defense is going to have to really clamp down on Washington and keep this game low scoring so that Indianapolis can win in a defensive battle where, we got emphasis on the run, emphasis on turnovers. I mean, to be honest, whoever turns the ball over more in this game is probably going to lose. That's probably going to be what does it right there. So run the ball, stuff the run, and take care of the football are three keys to the game. I know it's not rocket science, but it's been something the Colts have struggled to do all three at once very often this year.
Since 1951, Hancock Health has been centered around you. And now, as a member of the Mayo Clinic Care Network, our services are amplified by the world leader in medicine. We were selected by Mayo Clinic because of our commitment to caring for East Central Indiana. Now, our local experts are taking that commitment further by consulting with Mayo Clinic specialists and working together to make health possible. Learn more at hancockhealth.org/Mayo Clinic.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to predictions. FanDuel has the Colts 3-point favorites in this one. That's a bit of a surprise to me, but they are at home. The over-under is pretty low, 39.5. Mike, I'll let you go first, then I'll give us Dave's answer, and then I'll finish us up.
Boy, don't you like the under? 39.5. I mean, barring turnovers, don't you love the under?
Oh, yeah.
But having said that, my score reflects the over. I've got Colts 23-20. Based on only the fact that they're playing Washington, and I don't have a lot of faith in them. I think they're going to – Frank Reich's going to do his darndest to maximize Sam Ehlinger's strengths and limit any weaknesses, which is he's not played, he's not thrown any passes in the NFL. So, and I just think they get their running game going strong enough. I'm not predicting a 170 yards by Jonathan Taylor, but I think we're going to see where the running game takes a stride. So
wouldn't 18 carries for 70 yards for Taylor be nice?
Yes.
And a touchdown, just something decent.
Yes. Well, then because you're going to get 6 carries for 30 yards by Ehlinger, and you're going to have Nyheim Hines. Yes. Again, I'm not talking a breakout game. I'm just talking to where at least it's working.
It's production.
Right. So, and stay ahead of the chains, and these games are always 3 hours because that's what the NFL is. This could be 2 hours and 45 minutes with the way these teams play. But I've got 23-20, and they'll stay somewhat relevant league-wide because 4-3-1 makes you relevant.
This is a pretty good sign because Dave's been the most accurate of the three of us this year. He's got the Colts winning 20-16, so he's also got the under. I have the Colts winning as well. I have a score of 24-17, and my confidence in that is that the defense is going to make plays. I just feel like the defense is going to make plays. I think Jonathan Taylor's going to have a few plays. Pittman, the guys that are supposed to be your stars, your studs, I think they're going to step up. And I also think there's something about starting a new quarterback where the defense doesn't quite know what to expect yet. And I think that's going to give the Colts a bit of a spark, and it's going to keep the defense off balance and keep them guessing to a certain extent. We'll see as the games go on if these defense can kind of get a feel for Ehlinger and be able to pick up on his tendencies and give him some looks that he seems to struggle with. But as of right now, he has no regular season film in the NFL, no film with guys like Michael Pittman Jr. or Paris Campbell, Pierce, no film with the starting offensive line. I mean, he tore it up in the preseason. I get he was going against backups, but he was also playing with backups. He was throwing to Mike Straughns and Patman. I think Patman had the first 100-yard preseason game since Reggie Wayne way back in the day or something like that. So I think the stars on the Colts are going to be able to help elevate Ehlinger, and I think he's going to play smart enough football. He's going to make mistakes. That's just going to be what happens. You can't go out there, not a rookie, but in your first NFL game and have zero mistakes. I'm sure he'll probably throw an interception or, delay of games, stuff like that when you're learning and you're going through growing pains. But I think between the stars on offense and a defense that really is playing much better than they're giving a lot of credit for, and especially if Darius can come back and create a turnover or two, I think the Colts are going to make enough plays to win this one. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up here, Mike?
Nope. Again, I'm just very, very curious how this game unfolds, how they use Sam, and it's crazy all the intrigue we've had thus far, and there's 10 weeks to play. There's 10 more games, so I'm really curious how this goes to give us maybe some indication to where this season's going. Because if they go out there on Sunday and get their doors blown off, which I don't think is going to happen, but if that happens, I mean, all bets are off on which direction this team goes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It was an upsetting game to watch on Sunday, and I tweeted at one point, I'm officially done with Matt Ryan, and it turns out the Colts were too. But now with Sam Ehlinger at the helm, it gives me some sort of excitement watching the game, just not knowing what to expect. I mean, we had gotten to the point where we expect, all right, Matt Ryan's going to go out there, he's going to have 2 or 3 turnovers, the Colts are going to fall into a hole, and we'll just see if they can claw their way out of it. With Ehlinger, it's going to be a much different looking offense, and I'm looking forward to seeing something new during a season in which we've endured so much ugly football. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and it's going to be a beautiful display of offensive prowess or anything like that. I'd actually be surprised if that was the case. But at this point in the year, I'm just ready for something different, and I think Ehlinger provides that. And by the way, on Saturday, 2 SEC teams, we got Kentucky and Tennessee playing with a couple of quarterbacks the Colts might be interested in drafting this year. So if you got your Saturday free, that might be a game to check in on as well. Thank you so much for checking in on us and tuning in to the Colts Blue Zone podcast. You can follow the Blue Zone on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone. Follow Mike on Twitter at mchappell51. Follow me on Twitter at RotoStreetJoe. And, of course, Dave can be followed on Twitter at DaveG_sports. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back Monday to recap the game and talk about Sam Ehlinger's first career start. Have a great weekend, Colts fans.